Lord of the Mysteries finale has aired, and just like the rest of its episodes, it is a banger. So let's talk about it. You might be thinking, but Buchoy, how do you have this video ready? It literally just dropped. Well, let me just say that it's a testament to my skills, okay? Yeah, the episode just dropped, but I watched it and managed to make this video in that short amount of time. I'm just that good. Hey, if you need an editor, I got you. But yeah, I don't have much to say about this episode, to be honest, apart from the fact that it's really good and I enjoyed it. It does answer a lot of the questions, and basically it's an episode that wraps up all the events of this season. The very first scene from episode 1 where there was that monster that Klein was fighting, you know, Tinjin's Doomsday, that's pretty much what this episode is. It's Tinjin's Doomsday, and also all the events and the coincidences that have occurred throughout the season, all were meant to happen and were leading up to this Doomsday. So yeah, this episode pretty much has the final epic fight scene, and like I said, wraps up all the events, gives up the who's, when's, why's, how's, and then prepares us for the next part of the story. So the next arc, the next season. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. It was really good. It was, as always, visually appealing. The fight scenes, the animation was great. Everyone's pretty much going all out in this episode. So you're seeing the abilities of the characters, what they can really do, and just seeing the growth, especially Klein's. This episode was also quite emotional and impactful, and in my opinion, it was the most emotional episode so far. All in all, it was a fun experience, fun to watch, fun to pay attention to, and it was just a great way to wrap up the season and wrap up the stories and the characters and all that. And at the end, it gets you hyped for what's next because you feel like there's much more to come. I feel like the story is just beginning, you know? And I really can't wait for what's next. But yeah, now I'm just gonna talk about the episode, give a little recap. There will be spoilers, just so you know. Alright, let's go. Like I said, this episode is the Tinjin's Doomsday episode. So the very first bit that we saw at the start, this is it. This is the episode. So basically, this lady, Mijos, is pregnant with a baby, but not a normal baby. It's actually the spawn of the devil, pretty much. One of the characters, her husband, or fiance I think actually, planted the spawn of the true creator inside her, and it has just been brewing and waiting to come out. And it's real sad for her because she just wanted a normal life. She was real excited about having a baby to raise, you know, with her mans. But yeah, she got real unlucky with that. Since she has the true creator inside of her, she's becoming more and more unstable, and for a while now she's been at the peak of instability. Leonard was trying to hold her down and keep her calm, but she completely lost it and then turned into a monster. And now the Nighthawks have to fight her. And by the Nighthawks, I mean Captain Dunn, Klein, and Leonard. Like, these three were cooking, bro. It's 3v1. They're doing good. In the middle of the battle, Klein does a ritual to try to slow down the spawn of the true creator. I'm not really sure if it works, to be honest. It looked like it was, but then she fought back anyway, and then Klein kind of just got clapped here. After that, it's time for Captain Dunn to start cooking. He asks Leonard and Klein to stay back, and he's like, "Alright guys, give me 10 seconds. Count to 10 while I restrain this thing, and then you guys can cook." So they did. They counted to 10 while Captain Dunn does his thing to restrain the creature, and then after those 10 seconds, Klein and Leonard pair up and start jumping the thing. Klein used some charms against it, Leonard used his Beyonder abilities, then the creature fights back, and there's some back and forth fighting. Then the scene from the very first episode shows, you know, the one where Klein jumps up and then throws those charms, and then Klein gets hit in the chest, just like he did in the first episode, and then Captain Dunn uses his abilities, and then you can hear a baby crying throughout this sequence because the spawn is trying to come out too, and the creature did a ton of damage to Klein, Leonard, and Captain Dunn. They're all heavily weakened at this point, and the true creator is so close to spawning. We see Klein trying to make his final efforts to get up and do as much as he can, but at the same time, the captain picks up the sealed artifact that he's got with him, and you know, you kind of already feel what's about to happen. Maybe not the fact that he was going to rip his heart out, but you could tell he was going to make a sacrifice here. At this point, I was like, man, no way, Captain Dunn, bro. But at the same time, look at him. He looks so cool. You can tell he's about to cook. He's gonna do his thing. And he does. He rips his heart out, puts it inside that sealed artifact that he's got, and then we get this beautiful, beautiful animated sequence of Captain Dunn using Nightmare and the sealed artifact that he's got. And this part was so intense. It was so epic. The animation, the colors, the expressions of the characters, the music, everything about it was sick. And then you can see the spirits of the deceased Nighthawks as Captain Dunn makes his sacrifice. And then Klein finishes it off with that that last charm that he has, that part is just as good as the whole sequence. Even after all the fighting is finished, it's still epic and intense. You have Klein and Captain Dunn celebrating, but Klein knows and Captain Dunn knows that he's about to die. After saving Tinjin, and after a little while, Captain Dunn takes his final breath, and then Klein does his best to try to heal him, but not only is it not working, but then he also gets his own heart ripped out of his chest. You see, while Klein, Captain Dunn, and Leonard were fighting the creature, there was a dude aura farming the entire time. He was walking towards where the three Nighthawks and the creature were, and he was low-key pissing me off. I was like, these guys are fighting for their lives, and this dude is just aura farming. But turns out he was a bad guy. As you can immediately tell when he rips out Klein's heart, then Klein dies. Yeah, the main character, Klein Moretti, is dead. Again, actually, because if you remember the first episode, he shot himself in the head and he was dead before. That was tragic. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I think Captain Dunn's death was more sad than Old Neil's. Don't get me wrong, Old Neil's death was sad, but I feel like they were doing way too much in his episode. They were trying to make it more sad and it just didn't work. I don't know if it's just me. Hate my take if you want, but that's how it was for me. I feel like they didn't have enough of Old Neil, and they mostly had him as the guy that gives information, and only towards the end of his story did they really give Old Neil that feeling of like someone who was really close to Klein, or someone that Klein really cared about. Obviously it was sad, especially for the older Nighthawks, but in my opinion we just didn't get enough of him, so I wasn't really as connected to him. Maybe if I watched the mysticism classes while they were airing, maybe it would have made the death more impactful. And like I said, it was pretty sad, but they were just doing way too much that it kind of took away from it. But that's just me, I don't know. But with Captain Dunn's death, we've seen a lot of this guy. You know, we've been through his ups and downs, even have become suspicious of him in that one episode where he was eating Kenley. But all in all, the way they did his death was really good. Not only did he make an ultimate sacrifice to save Tinjin from its doomsday, but just the way that it was done. It wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. I feel like it was just right. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about those deaths, man. After Klein Moretti dies, we get a little narration. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the artifact that they're about to mention that's speaking this narration. So it starts off by saying a guy called Insi Zhangwil, sorry if I got that wrong again, had stolen an artifact from the Chanis Gate to obtain Saint Selena's ashes from Tinjin City. It then goes on to say that after a dark divination, Klein Moretti delivers the antagonist notebook to Ray Bieber's house. And then he shoots himself, but strangely, as we know, he doesn't die and ends up joining the Nighthawks. He then goes on to kill a sequence 7 of the Secret Order, which makes the Insei guy really mad. But everything was still going according to plan because Dunn Smith's spirituality suffered tremendous damage. It then talks about how the true creator saw behind the coincidences of all the events, and since it wanted to break free from the shackles, it did not refuse. It then talks about how interesting it was that Klein Moretti not only sensed the influence that Zhang Will had on all the events, and that he even helped Captain Dunn master the acting method. And it low-key pissed off Zhang Will, so he changed his plan. Then, as you might remember, Captain Dunn consumed Kenley's leftover Beyonder characteristics, but because of that, his acting and digestion process was interrupted, and he ended up making the wrong judgment and took Saint Selena's ashes from behind the Chanis Gate. So that was the box that he had and used while they were fighting the creature that had the true creator spawn. Zhang Will, as you know already, ended up killing Klein Moretti as he kept disrupting his plans. Then Zhang Will set up a ritual, consumed Saint Selena's ashes, and advanced from a sequence 5 of the death sequence pathway to a sequence 4 Night Watcher from the sleepless pathway, which ended up making him a demigod. So that's the end of that narration. We're then shown the only survivor of that scuffle, Leonard. He seems to be in a hospital bed, obviously cut that both Klein and Captain Dunn are dead, and then he expresses that he wants to join the Red Gloves, which is basically an elite team of Beyonders. And this next part is really sad. So it's at Klein Moretti's house, and it shows his siblings Melissa and Benson talking about the event that happened and how Melissa thinks that Klein is super stressed out, so she bought some tickets for all three of them to go see a show. And then Leonard shows up at their house and then tells Melissa and Benson that Klein's dead and they're heartbroken at the news of their brother's death. And then the next part is Klein and Captain Dunn's funeral, and it's just even more sad from there because all the characters are messed up, you know. Two very loved people in the story are gone. A friend to someone or brother, gone, taken away by that calamity. And yeah, it was just sad, you know, full of sorrow, especially the scene where Melissa was crying, bro. It was awful. Even Mr. Ajik shows up and he's like saying sorry that he wasn't there. You know, it wasn't his fault, but yeah, everyone's real sad. As you may have suspected though, Klein is not dead, and again it was because of the Grey Fog. Like he said the first time he was in the Grey Fog, he really does have hacks. So yeah, he comes back to life and then immediately goes on to investigating. So he does some divinations and then finds out about Zhang Will, and then you find out that the coincidences were orchestrated by the artifact that he stole, which is a quill that makes anything that you write down with it come true. So after he finds out about Zhang Will and his plans, he does 3 divinations. The first one is finding Zhang Will's location, and then the second one is Lanavis's location, and then the third is Klein's hope of becoming powerful. And all 3 of the divinations led to Backlund, which is the capital of the Lowen Kingdom where they reside. So that's where he's going next. And the very last part of the season is sad as well. Klein's going to do his final send-offs, visited his house, but didn't allow himself to be seen. And then Melissa and Benson go to a festival, I believe, and then a clown gives them a bouquet that symbolizes hope. And I'm 99.9% sure that this clown is Klein Moretti. Look at this guy, bro. Already doing the acting method for sequence 8. And that is how season 1 of Lord of the Mysteries ends. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. The pieces really came together in the end, and it leads into the next part of the story, leaves you excited for it. The animation was great, the music was great, it was emotional, and yeah, it was just a great way to wrap up season 1. My next Lord of the Mysteries video will probably be on Old Neil's mysticism class. So let me know what you guys think of Lord of the Mysteries if you've seen it. What do you think of season 1? What do you think of the ending? And what do you think about what's gonna happen next? And that's all for me. Bye.